Okay, so we're going to continue here by discussing attachment styles. Attachment theory is one of the big theories on relationship functioning. It's very popular across social psychology, clinical psychology, developmental psychology. The general idea here is that we feel connected to our caregivers, the way that our caregivers treat us, and the extent to which they're responsive to our needs lead us to develop perceptions of what relationships should look like. We carry those perceptions with us into adulthood, and we use those perceptions in our relationships with other people, including friends, romantic partners, our own children, and so forth. There are basically four different styles. People who are secure are relatively comfortable with intimacy and interdependence. They're optimistic and sociable. You could also say that they're low in anxiety about abandonment. They're also low in avoidance of intimacy. On the other hand, we have people who are preoccupied, also known as anxious ambivalent. And these people are uneasy and vigilant toward any threat to the relationship. They're needy and sometimes a little bit jealous, and they tend to be high in anxiety about abandonment. Now, both secure and preoccupied are low in avoidance of intimacy. We have these two groups down here that are high in avoidance of intimacy. People who are dismissing are self reliant and uninterested in intimacy. They're indifferent and independent. These are people who are also low in anxiety about abandonment. Over here, we have fearful avoidance. These are people who are fearful of rejection and mistrustful of others. They're suspicious and shy. These are people who are high in avoidance of intimacy and high in anxiety about abandonment. You should already be familiar with these ideas. But one thing to keep in mind is that in present day, we tend to assess attachment using more of a questionnaire style on two dimensions: anxiety about abandonment and avoidance of intimacy. Even though we can look at these low, low, high, high, and so forth, we tend to look more in terms of just avoidance or just anxiety. We could ask if we have examples of anxiety and avoidance here. If you had to guess, would you put Anna as relatively more or less avoidant and relatively more or less anxious? And where would you put Elsa as relatively more or less avoidant and relatively more or less anxious? Let's see what others have said. Here we have an example from the Close Relationships blog. In Frozen, Anna is anxiously attached. Her parents' death and her sister's abandonment leave her alone and desperate for love. So desperate, in fact, that she almost married a man that she just met, Prince Hans. Whenever Elsa seeks distance in the movie, Anna continues to pursue her and ends up getting hurt in the process. Anxiously attached people may engage in behavior like this because they over rely on their attachment figures for reassurance. In Frozen, Elsa exemplifies avoidant attachment. As a child, she was encouraged to conceal, don't feel, after her magical ability to create snow and ice accidentally injures Anna. From that moment on, Elsa increasingly pulls away from her sister, both physically and emotionally. When Anna finally confronts Elsa about her habit of shutting everyone out, Elsa responds by lashing out with her powers and running away. Self protective strategies, such as defensiveness and withdrawal, are how avoidantly attached people typically respond to relationship stressors. People high in avoidance also tend to underestimate others' care and support for them. For instance, even after Anna communicates her desire to help Elsa, Elsa rejects her sister's support and insists on being alone. If we're going to put the two of them on our chart here, we would put Anna up here as preoccupied, uneasy and vigilant toward any threat to the relationship, needy and jealous. Then we'd put Elsa down here as dismissing or fearful. It's not entirely clear which of these she'd be, but generally self reliant and uninterested in intimacy, indifferent and independent, versus fearful of rejection, mistrustful of others, suspicious and shy. If we bring in the fact that she's afraid to show people that she's got magic, that kind of goes along with the fear of rejection and mistrustful of others. So I think she probably fits fearful avoidance pretty well. We can say that they are reasonable examples of attachment anxiety and attachment avoidance, particularly fearful avoidance here. So moving on, in terms of social cognition, which from this week you should know is how we think about ourselves and others, why might anxiously attached and avoidantly attached people be insecure in their relationships? This is a social cognition phenomenon. People look for an objective rationale to believe that their partner loves and accepts them. They need to believe that there is something special about them that makes their partner love them and not want to leave them for anyone else. They want to believe that they are not replaceable. They need to convince themselves. We need to convince ourselves there's a reason our partner would want to be with us. Relatively more secure people tend to believe their partner is within their league or on even footing with them. Basically, they believe they are good enough for their partner. But we can question what happens with insecures. People who are high in anxious attachment tend to see themselves negatively. They tend to have relatively low self esteem and maybe think their partner is out of their league. They think their partner is too good for them. We have this example here. We'll call them Harry and Sally. Harry is thinking about his relationship with Sally and he just thinks she's too good for him. She is totally out of his league, right? And so there's this direct perception of balance here. They seem out of balance to Harry. But what about avoidant attachment? Well, in this case, they tend to see other people negatively. They don't trust other people. They avoid intimacy because they don't want to get hurt, although they may say that it's just they don't care about it. They may believe that their partner thinks that he or she is out of their league. If we think about this, an avoidant Harry is thinking Sally thinks that she's out of his league. We call this a meta perception of balance. It's the belief that Sally thinks they're out of balance. People who are anxiously attached and people who are avoidantly attached have different reasons for being insecure in their relationships. They have different expectations regarding balance. What can we do about that? We can test this by changing perceptions of imbalance. We can lead people to feel accepted by their partner by changing their perceptions of imbalance in their relationship. So, in this first experiment that I'm presenting, we're looking at attachment anxiety. And basically, what we did in the study was we looked at people's direct or their own perceptions of balance in their relationship. Then, in experiment two, we looked at attachment avoidance. In that one, we looked at enhancing perceptions of the partner's views of balance. So, again, experiment one, we're changing people's direct perceptions of balance, whether or not Harry believes that he's in the same league as Sally. People who are high in anxiety, we're expecting that leading them to believe that they're in the same league as their partner, that their relationship is balanced, will lead them to feel more perceived regard, or in other words, more accepted and loved. And that will also lead them to value their partner more. With people who are relatively low in anxiety, we don't expect to see that effect because they should already believe that they're equal to their partner, that they're as good as their partner. In experiment one, we used a manipulation of balance. We were manipulating direct perceptions of balance here. We asked people to write an essay. In one, they had to write 3 ways that they were superior to their partner. In the second one, they had to write about ways that their partner is inferior to them. And so you can see in both conditions, we're trying to make them feel like they're as good as their partner by bringing up ways that they're better or their partner's worse. If you already think you're out of balance, then we're trying to either bring the self up or bring the partner down. In the control condition, this third condition here, we just asked them to list traits of most romantic partner. And then the dependent variables here are feelings of acceptance. So to what extent do you feel like your partner accepts you? And then how much do you value your partner? The question here is, did high anxiety participants feel more accepted in the two experimental conditions than in the control condition? If we look at people who are relatively low in anxiety, they're roughly in the same place, especially if we were to collapse these two groups here, whether they're in the self-superior condition, the partner inferior condition, or the control condition, they tend to feel pretty accepted by their partner. If we look at those who are high in anxiety, we see in the control condition, they don't feel accepted. But after writing about ways that they're superior to their partner or ways that their partner is inferior to them, they feel almost as accepted as people who are low in anxiety. But what effect does that have on their perceptions of their partner? We find low anxiety people tend to value their partner fairly highly. High anxiety people, we see in the control condition, don't value their partner very much. But in the two experimental conditions, they do almost as much as those who are low in anxiety. This is even a bit of an ironic rebound or a paradoxical effect. We make them think of ways that their partner is inferior to them, and that makes them value their partner more. Here we see that taking away this feeling of imbalance makes them evaluate their partner more positively. In study one, we were looking at effects for people who are high in attachment anxiety. We found that making them feel like they were in the same league as their partner made them happier in their relationships. But what about attachment avoidance? We looked at experiment two. Again, we're looking at meta perceptions of balance, or the extent to which Harry believes that Sally sees them as being equal. If we change those meta perceptions of balance, then people who are high in avoidance should feel more accepted and loved. And they should also value their partner more positively, right? With low avoidance, we wouldn't expect to see that effect because, again, they should already believe that Sally sees them as being equal. So here, the balance manipulation is a little bit more complicated. In this study, both partners come into the lab and they go through all of the questionnaires on paper in the lab, and they're seated in the same room with their backs to each other. And they go through the questionnaires at the same time. And the experimenter was very careful to make sure that they always knew they were on the same questionnaires, they were going through the same things. And then they get to the manipulation, which was a listing task. The target participant, the one that we're focusing on today, always lists one way that they are inferior to their partner. Instead of manipulating what they do, we're manipulating what they think their partner is doing. In the control condition, the partner also only lists one way that they're inferior. So they basically come in, they write their little note and put it away. They're asked to put the list folded up and put it in an envelope when they're done. So then they're sitting there, they can hear their partner folding it up, putting it in the envelope at the same time as them. Nothing strange about that. They both do it at the same time. In the partner inferior condition, the partner is supposed to list many ways they're inferior to their partner. The way that we got them to do this is we asked them to list all of the items in their house. All of the instructions are on paper. So they think they're getting the same listing task. The target participant writes their one thing, and then they fold up their paper and they put it in an envelope, and then they sit there and they listen while their partner's writing and writing and writing and just writing. And so they're led to believe that their partner is listing many ways in which he or she is inferior. And then we assess their feelings of acceptance and the extent to which they value their partner. Did high avoidance participants feel more accepted in the experimental condition? We'll start with the low avoidance. We have a case here where they actually were a little bit less happy after the manipulation. When their partner felt inferior to them, they felt less accepted. But what happened with the high avoidance participants? Well, in the control condition, feel relatively less accepted. But when they think their partner is writing a long list of ways that the partner is inferior, they feel more accepted. So leading them to believe that their partner feels worse than them achieves that sense of balance, makes them feel better. And what does that do about their perceptions of their partner? Do they value their partner more? Well, in low avoidance, there was not much of a change. So essentially, they still value their partner pretty highly. In the high avoidance, in the control condition, they didn't value their partner highly at all. But in the partner inferior condition, they do, as much as low avoidant people do. So listening to the partner write a long list of ways in which the partner felt inferior to them made them value that partner more. Doubts that people who are insecurely attached experience about their relationships may stem from their worries about equity or equality. They may worry that if they're high in anxiety, they're not good enough for their partner. In that case, making them feel equal improves their relationship. If they're high in avoidance, they may worry that their partner thinks they aren't good enough. Again, making them feel equal improves their relationship.